The National Labor Relations Board has filed a complaint against Starbucks for preventing their unionized stores from accepting tips through credit cards. Now, this was something that workers had been fighting for at Starbucks for quite some time. But that policy alone, preventing these unionized workers from being able to get tips through credit cards, has cost these workers a tremendous amount of money. You won't even believe how much. I'm gonna get to those details in just a second. But here is how this all played out, okay? The complaint said this: Starbucks Workers United has made credit card tipping a core demand of their union campaign. But last year, Howard Schultz, who's of course the interim CEO of Starbucks, announced that the feature would only be rolling out to non-unionized stores. The union filed charges against Starbucks with the NLRB, alleging that it was a union busting tactic. And now, luckily, the NLRB has officially backed the Starbucks workers and Starbucks Workers United specifically in their complaint. So the NLRB not only demanded that Starbucks release credit card tipping in all of their stores, including the stores that have voted to unionize, but also pay back the workers for all the tips that they lost out on as a result of this union busting tactic. By the way, how much did it cost workers at some of these stores? Well, according to More Perfect Union, in some stores, credit card tipping has added $3 to $4 an hour on workers' paychecks.
Yeah, this one's not at all subtle. Right?
Seriously.
Sometimes you see a story and you're like, well, is that union busting or is it not? It's around the edges. Let's see what the National Labor Relations Board says, right? This one's not at all around the edges, okay? That's robbing those workers of all of that money in all of those stores that are unionizing, and they're punishing them on purpose. Remember, Howard Schultz, who of course is the founder of Starbucks, has now served as CEO several different times, came back to fight the unions. And remember when he briefly considered running for president? He was painted as a left winger, as someone on the left, and they would use the word progressive for him. I mean, but to the media, they're like, oh, what do you mean? He's a progressive, just like Nicole Wallace is on MSNBC, and she was the communications director for George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. That's as far left as we'll go, right? And that's corporate media for you. Yeah, so thank you to More Perfect Union for covering this story and getting the truth out there. Look, Starbucks, man, this is not like around the edges, and you're not a tiny little company barely surviving. You're making billions in profits. And this is a terrible business strategy, let alone being immoral, right? They're punching themselves in the face 10,000 times over. Starbucks used to, rightly or wrongly, be considered somewhat of a progressive brand. Now, nobody would say that. No right, like, yeah, maybe somebody on cable news would say it, right? But none of the rest of us would say it. Now I'm reluctant to go into a Starbucks. Congratulations.
And I mean, the tactics they've used, it's just so brazen, right? And if it weren't for, like, if we were dealing with Trump's NLRB, these workers would have no protection at all. In fact, do you remember that Google employee, James Damore, who had written that memo within Google in regard to why there aren't women coders, enough women coders? Whatever you think about that guy, right? He ended up getting fired because he wrote some stuff that was deemed offensive to women in that memo. And he's like, I'm gonna take this fight to the NLRB. And remember, Trump's backing him, all these Republicans are backing him. They're like, oh, free speech, free speech. He went to the NLRB where all these people were appointed by Donald Trump. And of course, they were totally against workers. You know what they told him? Buzz off, kick rocks.
Of course.
So just something to keep in mind, because yes, we give Biden justified flack for his leadership, but there are some elements of his administration that deserve some credit. Other benefits, by the way, that Starbucks withheld from their unionized workers included pay raises and additional health benefits last May, additional sick days after Starbucks ended their COVID policies last September, and even more pay raises last December. And sadly, the union busting is effective because it dissuades other stores from organizing. So here's what one union leader in Oklahoma City told More Perfect Union. quote, "At my store, it did have a negative impact. We had our election finalized right as they rolled out these new benefits," meaning the credit card tipping. "So as happy as we were that people won, we were told that since we won our election, we were not getting credit card tipping or the raises. Our manager met with everyone and told us that if we transferred to another store, a non-unionized store, you would make $1.50 more and credit card tipping. And some did transfer as a result."
Look, Starbucks, in my opinion, is, even if they quote unquote win on busting this union, they still lose. They've lost stock market cap, they're losing valuation by the minute. And by the way, this is another reason to organize. So when you're getting underpaid, you've got a giant corporation that brags about how many billions they make every year in profits, and they refuse to share any of it with you. When you do organized action like this, you hit them where it hurts, which is their bottom line. Now all of a sudden their valuation is going down. Howard Schultz is just now, I don't know if he's down to like 15 billion or whatever he's down. I don't know what his wealth is, but I'm sure it's in the billions, right? But this so
3.7 billion.
3.7 billion. Okay. My guess is that at some point Starbucks is going to look back at this, some other executive at Starbucks, and go, yeah, it would have cost us this to give them decent wages.
Right.
And instead it cost us this, like all the way up here, to try to fight them and make us, and you're making yourself look like the worst guys in America.
In fact, I'm gonna leave you with this final statistic, it'll blow your mind. The NLRB has cited Starbucks with over 900 violations of federal labor law since the union drive began. 900.
Yeah, look, man, there's parts of what I think about labor that folks might not be perfectly happy with on the left. And I'm telling you, this isn't even close. 900 violations. And it's one thing to say, hey, I'm withholding wages because we're gonna go into, or raises because we're gonna go into salary negotiations. But they're not saying they're going into negotiations.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and the tips have nothing to do with any of that.
Exactly.
So no, this is as clear a case of union busting as I've ever seen. And way to destroy your brand, well played. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.